Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new PNSO release. As you can see, we've got ourselves a marine reptile, something we don't get very often from any company really, but we have had quite a few from PNSO in the past. It's just been a little while since they've given us one. As you can see, we've got the Guizhouichthyosaurus, and this is a very, very cool figure. It's also quite the species name, not one that I'm absolutely positive that I pronounced correctly, so I do apologize if I did mispronounce that, but you can see the box art looks pretty cool. The figure itself also looks quite nice. You have pretty much the same thing when you turn it around and look at the other side, and your standard PNSO info on the underside. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So first of all, we have some very cool stands. As you can see, PNSO has supplied us with two different stands so that you can display the figure out quite nicely, which is a plus for something like this. We also have a very nice poster. I'm sure it's a very nice poster. It usually is when it comes to PNSO. So let's go ahead and open this one up and take a look at it. So this time we actually have a poster that is not a a little dino toy or marine reptile toy photography like we often get. This time we just have some straight up absolutely incredible artwork here. So as per usual, a definitive frame-worthy image. And then, of course, on top of all of that, you also have the booklet, which does feature all sorts of information, images, everything like that. You can see some very nice images here on the inside of the booklet. I love the, hand-drawn images and stuff. And then, of course, you can see, I kind of lost it, you have actual images of the figure and everything else contained within, which is, of course, a massive plus. Always love those booklets. And then we have the figure itself, and there it is. And it is really quite the striking color scheme. I will definitely give them that. I love the usage of the yellows on this one because that's not something I see too often when it comes to species like this. And I like that they've given it quite a bit of variation of color, but, in a way where it absolutely looks like it could be the color of the actual species, which is a huge plus. Definitely having that, aquatic creature sort of coloration. So let's readjust the camera here just slightly so we can bring it in and get a nice closer look. So starting up here in the head sculpt, you can see the head sculpt does look really nice. Sculpt wise, I think the figure as a whole is quite beautifully done. We've got a nice snout here. We can see the nostrils as well as the eye. The eye is painted with a nice reddish brown and given a black pupil. We can also see that yellow tone pick up there, basically from the lower jaw and up and through the eye, and then patterning back through the body. We can also see that we have a black for the snout, and then we see that black move here, but we also have a nice white tone for the underside that kind of follows along the underside of the figure. And the paint application is pretty nice and smoothly applied, I would definitely say. It looks pretty decent as a whole. I like that they've kind of faded the yellow out. Like up here, it's almost like a kind of like an abrupt transition, similar to the way the rest of the body is, but on the underside there, it kind of fades out, which is pretty cool, just a little difference as far as that goes. We also have a nice variation to the darker tones here, as we actually have a black and a nice darker blue, and sometimes you almost don't even notice the blue until you kind of turn the figure and allow the light to hit it, and you can really see, specifically right there, that blue popping very nicely. I think that looks great. The texturing is also quite nicely done. It's for the most part kind of smoothed out, exactly as you would expect for an ichthyosaur, and again, I think that has been perfectly displayed on the figure, but at the same time you still can see some slight texturing. You can also see a bit of a satin shine, especially when we look at the underside here, which of course helps to give it that kind of wet look, but honestly the entire figure kind of has that satin shine, which is pretty much the perfect finish for something like this. As you lead here to the undersides, you also do have some pinkish tones that pick up. Moving along the underside of the flippers in both the front and rear flippers, I also like that we have some of the black that kind of breaks off and trails here to the underside underside of the figure. And you can even see the undersides of the flippers as well have a nice mixture of the black and then the white kind of outlining the outer edges of the flippers, which looks really cool. And you'll see the same thing when you look at it from up here, but you can also see again a little bit of that bluish tone there kind of showing up within the blacks there in the flippers. And again, the detailing looks pretty good. Got some nice smooth texturing throughout. Up here we have the dorsal fin, and again that looks pretty good as well with a nice white tip up there. As we continue to move back, you can see the yellow transition to a white for the end of that stripe, which does look pretty cool. Again, leading back a little bit further, you do have the rear flippers as well. Again, sculpted out really nicely, also painted with that mixture of black and dark blue, which looks really cool with the white yet again outlining the outer edge of the flipper. You have a little bit more of that white that kind of leads up here in the back of the figure here as we lead into the tail. And once you do lead out into the tail, you can see again that nice mixture of the black and the blue, and then again the whites there for the tips of the tail fin, which does look really cool. Obviously you can see a little bit of a curve to the tail, honestly a slight curve to the entire body, but for the most part the curve really is obvious out there on the tail. And you can of course see the other side with the very nice texturing, as well as yet again the same coloration again with that yellow stripe, which actually looks, I think, a little bit nicer on this side than it did on the first side. It doesn't quite fade on the underside over here like it did on the first side, and the transition is a little smoother moving back there toward the end, but overall it is still, again, really nice and striking as far as the coloration goes on this figure. It is absolutely a beautiful looking figure as a whole, and definitely a really nice species choice, one that I without a doubt did not have previously in my collection. So I'm actually going to break out these stands so we can prop it up. So there we go. As far as a size goes, for a length from the snout to the tail, I'd say just shy of 8 inches, or pretty much 20 centimeters on the dot. Now obviously that's the most I really think you're going to get as far as a size, you know, as far as a measurement goes. You don't have much in the way of like a height or anything, and considering it's up on the stands right now, those little pegs, it's kind of cheating to give it any sort of a measurement in the height department. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Dilophosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being next to our figure, and you can see again that it does have a pretty decent size, but by no means is it a large figure. And since I unfortunately do not have any other figures of this species, I think I'll just bring in a few random PNSO marine reptiles that we can use to compare here. You can first of all see the Dinosaur, which is a bit smaller. We also have the PNSO Atopodentatus, which you can very clearly see is kind of similar in size, just with a very different body shape. We as well have the Uranosaurus from PNSO, which you can clearly see is quite a bit smaller. Then moving away from the marine reptiles, we also have the Helicoprion from PNSO, which you can see is slightly larger. And one final comparison with the PNSO Dunkleosteus. I'm not really sure again if there was any specific figure you guys might have wanted to see a comparison with for this one, because again, it is such a unique species I did not have previously, but if so, let me know, and I can see if I can get a comparison for you guys. But otherwise, hopefully the comparisons I've given you have been helpful to establish the size, because again, even though it's not huge, it is quite nicely sized. So to say PNSO is consistently very impressive would be an understatement, but the fact that they have given us so many really cool and quite obscure marine species over, quite a period of few years is really cool. But it's also quite exciting that we now clearly are returning to that, at least briefly. I don't know if the next, reveal will be a marine species, or if it's going to be another ceratopsian like we were getting for a little while, or if they're going to move somewhere else. I don't know, but I am definitely excited to find out. And this figure, again, was definitely a really nice choice on their part, and also, again, quite nicely done as a whole. I think the sculpt looks great. It definitely has some nice fine detail without being obviously too over sculpted, because when it comes to something like this, you would definitely expect like a nice smooth texturing to the skin. They've also given it a pretty nice natural pose without going too flashy or dramatic, with the basically just swimming along and a nice curve to the tail. I think that also looks nice. The paint scheme is also quite creative and very flashy, as far as the yellow stripe moving down through the body, really playing off of the darker tones of the body. But I also love the way they've utilized the nice really bright whites with the darker tones playing off of that as well. well. A little inconsistent when it comes to the paintwork from one side to the other, but it does still look really cool. And the only inconsistency is really the way that the yellow stripe has been applied. Other than that, I think it looks really nice, and again is definitely another very cool species choice and a very cool figure from PNSO. So if you are interested in grabbing this and adding it to your collection, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that again right now. So check those links, definitely pick this up if you want it, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.